When Saudi Arabia formally became a nation in 1932, education was largely limited to instruction for a select few in Islamic schools. Today, public education, from primary education through college, is open to every Saudi citizen. Background: Saudi education is noted for its religious content. As of 2011, religious studies average a total of 9 periods a week at the elementary, primary school level, compared to an average about 12 periods a week total for math, science, geography, history, and physical education. At the university level, nearly two-thirds of graduates earn degrees in Islamic subjects. However, the education system has also been criticized for poorly trained teachers, low retention rates, lack of rigorous standards, weak scientific and technical instruction, despite generous budgets that have compelled the kingdom to depend on large numbers of expatriates workers to fill technical and administrative positions. Education management system. The education system in Saudi Arabia is primarily under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Higher Education and the General Organization for Technical Education and Vocational Training. Other authorities such as the Ministry of Defense and Aviation, the Presidency of the National Guard. The highest authority that supervises education in Saudi Arabia is the Supreme Committee for Educational Policy, established in 1963. According to the World Bank database, public spending on education is 6.8% of GDP, and public spending on education as a percentage of government expenditure was 27.6% in 2004. Education spending as a percentage of overall spending tripled from 1970 to 2000, and neither economic growth nor the price of oil had much impact on this trend. The Ministry of Education developed the Ministry of Education 10-year Plan 1425 to 1435, which set the following goals: the education of 4 to 6-year-old children and the consideration of kindergarten as an independent stage as compared with other educational stages in terms of its buildings and syllabi, accommodation of all age categories from 6 to 18 years old at various stages of education, deepening the spirit of loyalty and pride of the country through intellectual awareness of Saudi Arabia's national issues, preparing students academically and culturally at the local and international levels to be able to achieve advanced international posts in the fields of mathematics and science for various age categories, taking into account international test standards, organization of girls' technical education, development of an educational system for students with special needs, development and growth of educational and administrative training for the ministry's personnel, improvement of internal and external sufficiency for the educational system, development of syllabi based on Islamic values leading to the development of male and female students' personality and to their integration in society, as well as to the achievement of scientific and thinking skills and life characteristics resulting in self-education and lifelong learning, to improve the quality of male and female teachers and to increase the citizens' rate in the education sector to achieve the full use of Saudi human resources, to develop the educational structure and to update the school map to meet the expected quantitative and qualitative changes in the next stage, to develop the infrastructure of information and communication technology and its employment in education and learning, to develop male and female adults' education and to eradicate illiteracy. The ministry's comprehensive administrative development, expansion of social participation in education, to establish integrated systems for accountability. Pre-primary education. In Saudi Arabia, children aged 3 to 5 years go to kindergarten. However, attendance of kindergartens is not a prerequisite for enrollment of first grade of primary education, and kindergartens are not part of the official education ladder. Some private nurseries have been established with technical and financial aid from the government. According to government data, 100,714 children are in pre-primary education in 2007. The gross enrollment percentage was 10.8%, for boys 11.1% and for girls 10.4%. Primary education. Primary education in Saudi Arabia lasts 6 years, and children at the age of 6 enter the first grade of primary education. All national primary schools are day schools and are not co-educational. In order to move on to intermediate education, children must pass the examination at the end of grade 6 of primary school and obtain the elementary education certificate. According to government data, 2,442,482 students are in primary education in 2007, and the number of teachers totals 217,555 in 2007. According to UNESCO, the gross enrollment ratio for boys is 99.9%, gross enrollment ratio for girls is 96.3%. and the total gross enrollment ratio is 98.1% in 2007. Intermediate and secondary education. Intermediate education in Saudi Arabia lasts 3 years. According to government data, 1,144,548 students are in intermediate education in 2007, and the number of teachers totals 108,065 in 2007. According to gross enrollment, the total rate is 95.9% in 2007. Secondary education in Saudi Arabia lasts 3 years, and this is the final stage of general education. After the intermediate education, students have the opportunity for both general and specialized secondary education. Technical Secondary Institute, which provide technical and vocational education and training programs, lasts 3 years in the fields of industry, commerce and agriculture. According to government data, 1,013,074 students are in secondary education in 2007, and the number of teachers totals 87,823 in 2007. As of 2007, gross enrollment rates are 91.8% in secondary education. Higher education in Saudi Arabia lasts 4 years in the field of humanities and social sciences and 5 to 6 years in the field of medicine, engineering and pharmacy. The establishment of the King Saud University in 1957 is a starting point of the modern higher education system in Saudi Arabia. This was also the first university in all the Arab states of the Persian Gulf. There are 24 government universities in Saudi Arabia, established in a short span of time. Among them, Taiba University, Qasim University and Taif University were established under the 7th Development Plan. The universities consist of colleges and departments that offer diplomas, and bachelor's, master's and PhD degrees in various scientific and humanities specializations. Some colleges and departments also provide distance learning. There also exist private colleges, community colleges affiliated to universities, and girls' colleges, in addition to government agencies and institutions that provide specialist university-level education. According to a World Bank report, more than 70% of the students in Saudi Arabia are in the fields of humanities and social sciences, a figure similar to that of other Arab countries, like Djibouti, Egypt, Morocco, Oman, the United Arab Emirates, and West Bank and Gaza. According to government data, a total of 636,245 students were enrolled in higher education in 2006. Among them, 528,146 students were in bachelor programs, 9,768 students were in master programs, and 2,410 students were in PhD programs. Another 93,968 students were in intermediate diploma courses and 1,953 students were in higher diploma course. According to the World Bank, in 2006 the gross enrollment ratio for females was 36.1%, the gross enrollment ratio for males was 24.7%, and the total gross enrollment ratio was 30.2%. In 2005, King Abdullah implemented a government scholarship program to send young Saudi nationals to Western universities for undergraduate and postgraduate studies. The program offers funds for tuition and living expenses for up to 4 years. An estimated 5,000 Saudi students received government scholarships to study abroad for the 2007-2008 academic year. Students mostly studied at universities in Canada, the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, Switzerland, France, and Germany. In the United Kingdom alone, more than 15,000 Saudi students, 25% of whom are women, attend universities. The large number of students also include Saudis paying their own tuition. The large influx of Saudi students to the United Kingdom prompted the Saudi Ministry of Higher Education in 2010 to close access to the country for further study. Girls' and women's education. In 1957, the Dar al-Hanan and Nassif private schools for girls opened in the city of Jeddah. The openings were prompted by Ifat, the wife of Faisal of Saudi Arabia. Afterwards, the Saudi government began opening state-operated girls' schools. Religious fundamentalists protested the openings of the schools. In 1963, King Faisal brought soldiers to control protesters when a girls' school opened in Buraidah. During Saudi Arabia's first oil boom, many Saudi males who studied abroad brought foreign wives back to Saudi Arabia. This caused concern among Saudi fathers with daughters eligible for marriage. In the late 1970s, the Saudi government greatly increased university spots for women in order to make Saudi women more desirable as wives for educated Saudi men. The General Administration of Girls' Education was established independently from the Ministry of Education when girls' education was started in Saudi Arabia 1960. Girls' education was put under the control of a separate administration controlled by conservative clerics as a compromise to calm public opposition to allowing girls to attend school. 60% of university students in Saudi Arabia are Saudi females. In Saudi Arabia, women in the labor force are mainly in the education sector. The first group of women graduated from a law program in 2008. On 6 October 2013, the first 4 women received their legal licenses to practice law, not only as legal consultants but as lawyers in courtrooms and before the Saudi judiciary. According to the World Bank report, female students in higher education in Saudi Arabia outnumber those in Jordan, Lebanon, Tunisia and West Bank and Gaza. According to the World Bank, gross enrollment rate for female is 36.1%, gross enrollment rate for male is 24.7%, and gross enrollment rate for total was 30.2% in 2006. There are thousands of female professors throughout Saudi Arabia. Around 2009, an expert on girls' education became the first woman minister in Saudi Arabia. Noura bint Abdullah Al-Fayez, a U.S.-educated former teacher, was made deputy education minister in charge of a new department for female students. In addition, Saudi Arabia provides female students with one of the world's largest scholarship programs. By this program, thousands of women have earned doctorates from Western universities. The building of colleges and universities for women, which was recently announced by the government, is critically important. Women comprise 60% of Saudi Arabia's college students but only 21% of its labor force, much lower than in neighboring countries. 85% of employed Saudi women work in education, 6% in public health, and 95% in the public sector. Princess Noura bint Abdul Rahman University is the first women's university in Saudi Arabia and largest women-only university in the world. composed of 32 campuses across the Riyadh region. Private education. In Saudi Arabia, private education is to be considered one of the elements supporting governmental education at all education levels. The General Department for Private Education at the Ministry of Education supervises private schools for boys and private schools for girls. Government provides private schools with free textbooks and an annual financial aid. Government also appoints and pays for a qualified director in every private school. According to UNESCO, in 2007, 48.9% of children enroll in pre-primary schools, 8.2% of children enroll in primary school. As for the intermediate education, 6.4% of students enrolled in general programs are in private schools and 70.3% of students enrolled in technical and vocational programs are in private schools. As for the secondary education, 13.4% of students enrolled in general programs are in private schools and 61.6% of students enrolled in technical and vocational programs are in private schools. According to the World Bank, in 2004, 7.4% of students in tertiary education enrolled in private schools. International education. As of January 2015, the International Schools Consultancy listed Saudi Arabia as having 203 international schools. ISC defines an international school in the following terms. ISC includes an international school if the school delivers a curriculum to any combination of preschool, primary or secondary students, wholly or partly in English outside an English-speaking country, or if a school in a country where English is one of the official languages offers an English medium curriculum other than the country's national curriculum and is international in its orientation. This definition is used by publications including The Economist. In Saudi Arabia, some international schools are owned by communities of foreign nationals, while others are private schools owned by individuals with Saudi citizenship. The Saudi government limits community schools to one per locality or city per nationality. Diplomatic missions either supervise or directly operate the community schools. These community schools are not required to separate male and female students into separate campuses and are allowed to host social activities with men and women mixed. They are not required to have Saudi citizens as sponsors since the Saudi authorities consider the schools to be under the sponsorship of the diplomatic missions. Zarina Valerie, Regis and Alan B. de Guzman, authors of A System Within a System, The Philippine Schools Overseas, wrote that the Saudi Ministry of Education still exercises restraint in implementing its regulatory functions on community schools. There may be more than one private school per nationality per city. The number of private schools that may be established is dependent upon the number of Saudi nationals willing to open a school in that city. Unlike community international schools, private international schools are required to follow Saudi regulations, including those related to gender segregation. Philippine schools. As of February 2006, about 75% of the Philippine international schools represented by the Commission on Filipinos Overseas were located in Saudi Arabia. Community-owned Philippine schools, including the International Philippine School in Al-Khobar, the International Philippine School in Jeddah, and International Philippine School in Riyadh, were by 2006 managed by independent school boards but were initially managed by the diplomatic missions themselves. As of 2006, Riyadh has 13 Philippine private schools and Jeddah has 5 Philippine private schools. Large numbers of Philippine children came to Saudi after many Filipino workers arrived in Saudi Arabia in the 1980s. The first Philippine school in Saudi Arabia, Philippine School in Jeddah, was established after the Philippine consulate in Jeddah began making efforts to start a school in 1983, and Philippine schools were later established in Riyadh and other Saudi cities. In 2000, Saudi Arabia had 9 accredited Philippine schools. By 2005, Jeddah alone had 4 Philippine international schools, with 2 more scheduled to open shortly. By 2006 there were 21 Philippine schools recognized by the CFO, reflecting a 133% growth rate from 2000. Literacy. According to the results of the demographic survey conducted by the Department of Statistics and Information, Ministry of Economy and Planning in 2007, the incidence of illiteracy among the Saudi population is 13.7%. The illiteracy rate stood at 1.4% for the age group 10 to 14 years, while the highest level in the age group between the ages of 65 and more than 509,573 people to the rate of 73.9%. With regard to the spread of illiteracy among Saudi administrative regions, as the study showed a large disparity between the regions of the kingdom. While the figure for both sexes is at its lowest level in the Riyadh region, at 9.9%, the highest level is found in the Jizan area at 23.5%. And the lowest rate of illiteracy among males is in Riyadh region, as the minimum rate of 5.1% and in Jizan higher rate of 14.8%. While the lowest rate of illiteracy of Saudi women is in the eastern region at 14.7% and the highest rate is in the region of Jizan at 31.6%. According to the World Bank, there is gender disparity in literacy rate. In 2007, 85.0% of adult illiterate and 98.1% of youth illiterate. 89.1% of male adults illiterate and 79.4% of female adults illiterate. As for youth literacy rate, 97.0% is literate, 98.1% of male youths illiterate, and 95.9% of female youths illiterate. One of the World Bank reports suggested the relatively high adult literacy rate of Saudi Arabia, considering the continued low level of primary enrollment, derived from the successful use of religious organizations, particularly local mosques and local religious institutions such as Quranic schools for the provision of ancillary educational services, which is a trend of particular note in the MENA region. King Abdullah Project for General Education Development. The King Abdullah Project for General Education Development is a state Route 9 billion project to be implemented over the next 6 years to create a skilled and workforce for the future. A number of schools in Jeddah, Riyadh and Dammam have been selected for the implementation of this project. More than 400,000 teachers will be trained for the new program.